Welcome back to episode 74 of the Disorganized Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm here as always with Adam.
Hello.
And Cam.
Greetings.
And we're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournaments, stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Or we talk about boggles, and you don't have to get better. You
Bagels.
just play boggles. Or bogles. Ugh.
It's makes some. There's not a lot of complicated decisions in that deck.
It's just Magic as it was intended to be.
Well, I mean,
Make
just
my
like
one.
there's that tweet that Rich Hagon had, right? Because
Right.
the interview with Budakov, who won the Magic Online Championships this weekend playing boggles, or bagels, or bogles, who said that he didn't want to play Magic against too smart for him players.
Yeah, he was going to be playing against better players, so
Played boggles and just
minimize
slaughtered.
the amount of Magic he has to play,
Yeah, and just stomp the field.
as he should.
Skill game.
Yeah. That's his second time winning the MOCS, too.
Yeah, first person to
Two-time
ever
champion.
do it.
Smart guy, obviously.
Yeah.
Played Boggles.
Ugh.
I mean,
Magic
clearly
as it was intended, guys.
despite playing Boggles, clearly he's a good player if you can win
Yeah.
the MOCS
Oh,
twice.
for sure,
so if
yeah.
I ever have to play against him, I'm going to play Boggles.
Just to be safe.
Yeah.
You don't want to take the risk.
Yeah.
But my
can probably win
favorite
a
part
Boggles
of,
mirror.
of the like WotC coverage on the page was like, he's demonstrated his prowess on Magic Online, like as if somehow like this ability to play the game wouldn't translate to paper. You know what I mean? Like there's the way in which they wrote the article framed it as if like he was a god of Magic Online specifically, not just the game in general broadly,
Yeah.
as if these are two separate games that one masters.
If you were applying for like IT positions or like to be a programmer, you could put that on your resume, right? Like I know Python, I know Java, I'm pretty good with Photoshop, and I can run Magic Online. Like
I don't know how to
the
play
programs I have
don't know how to play
mastery
on
of.
paper, but I'm very good in Moto.
Well, think about it. How many MOCS champions have we seen really do well on the Pro Tour circuit aside from Reed Duke, Josh Utter-Layton?
Besides a bunch of them, like I think Budakov played in like 12 Pro Tours in a row.
Yeah, like he's obviously very good, but do you ever see him, like has he ever top 8'd anything? Does he, I'm not like aware of how good he usually performs at Pro Tours.
I think, he does better than the average Pro Tour
Yeah.
appearance. Like the average player who plays on the Pro Tour like plays a couple times or once and then like not again.
Well, do you get platinum for winning the MOCS?
I'm not sure, but he
I
definitely
think you do.
Yeah, but he also definitely qualified other ways and has
Yeah.
top 8'd GPs and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I've seen his name before, but I'm talking about players like Lars Dam, who top 4'd this weekend. Like he always just gets stomped at Pro Tours.
Yeah,
And then there was
I'm not
that other
sure.
guy a couple of years ago, Nears Newlander. Is that his name?
Niles
just gets-
Nylander, yeah.
He just gets stomps at Pro Tours too.
But like I think on average, probably just a league on Magic Online has higher competition than a PPTQ. at your
Oh,
local
for
store.
sure. Definitely.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. They're probably fine. It's actually like the Magic Online Championships, like crazy. Yeah, it's like kind of
Yeah, winner gets platinum.
yeah. It's like winning a Pro Tour. Then yeah, it's 40 grand. Holy shit!
Yeah, it is winning. It is like
It's
pretty much
actually the
Yeah.
same as winning a Pro Tour.
Yeah. And it's small tournament though, 24 players. All really good players though.
Yeah, qualify
Yeah.
for the MOCS is hype.
How do you qualify? What are your
Just playing
options?
monthly.
Oh, there's just MOCS qualifiers all year?
Yeah, it's like one a month kind of thing. I used
Yeah.
to play in them.
But you have to win.
I lost in the semis.
Or do you have to go
Of a
like
couple.
5-0 in a
yeah,
in
but
a
that's easy.
event?
You got to like 5-0 a weekly thing,
yeah.
and then you qualify for the MOCS on the weekend.
Yeah.
And then the MOCS qualifiers, like you can either spend points. I don't know how it works now, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Hmm.
You
I
have
lost-
to, there's
I lost,
a couple
like-
stages to get to the qualifier, and then if you win that, you get to go.
One
to
time
the
I lost to
championship.
Kenji in the quarters of the semis. I can't remember. And then he lost the next round too. I was like, come on. And my deck was like way better. I was like, gotta smash this guy. Just so unlucky. I'm on like 5.
Speaking of weekend qualifying events, the Wizards Tower has an open series, and they host open qualifiers and sometimes standard, modern, or limited on Saturdays. And then every Pro Tour, there's an open championship at the Wizards Tower. And if you don't know, they also sell singles, free shipping in Canada. Check them out at wizardtower.com.
And if you didn't know, also they're great sponsors of this podcast.
They are.
Yeah. Just let me look at what event they have this Saturday.
Great store, great people, friendly employees,
Mm-hmm.
known to put up with our shenanigans.
There's a standard showdown this weekend.
Oh yeah, standard showdown packs are sweet. What did we open? Remember when we randomly like you came home and you were like, oh yeah, the staff said that you just left a bunch of standard showdown packs.
Because we like crumpled some event and then had to go do something. We just left, forgot to pick up our packs
like months ago.
Yeah,
And
there
they're
was
like,
one
oh
sitting
hey,
there for
there's
us.
like whatever, and then I opened it and I got like a foil freebooter as my uncommon, which is hype because
Yeah.
it's modern playable, and then a glory bringer and an Earthshaker Kenner or
Yeah,
something.
we had some pretty good packs. I
It's
forget what were
actually
in
it's
mine.
a standard qualifier for the Tower Open.
And that also doubles up as a standard showdown.
Yeah, so
Sweet, that is hype.
top
Let's go
4
15
players
bucks.
qualify for the Open Championship, which is in a couple months.
It's like a couple $1,000 tournament.
Whenever
cash
Dominaria
tournament.
comes out.
It's like it matches the Pro Tour. It's the same weekend
When's
as the Pro Tour.
Dominaria come out? I don't know.
April, I think.
Yeah,
Is it
sometime.
April?
Yeah, I think pre-releases are like end of April.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go play maybe. Play some standard. What's standard like at the tower these days? I haven't been playing as
I
much.
thought you were
in
leaving this
paper.
weekend.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that for a brief moment.
Well, no, hold on. I think I fly out Sunday night
So you can play.
on Saturday.
On
Well, I
Saturday.
got a pack and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
you
going
can
to
do that Sunday morning.
going to China.
Why are you
So,
going to China, Adam?
doing some work
For who?
for WESG World Esports Gaming.
Wow.
I'm going to do some coverage work for Liquid and some other people.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Hainan province. It's like an island off the mainland China. I fly out on Sunday, and it's sort of like a work trip for a week.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I got my visa today. Alex drove me to because my car died. Also, in other news, finally, dude, the Green Dragon.
We just have a moment of silence on the podcast for the Green Dragon.
Pour one out. But I got a call from them because it's been sitting at the mechanic shop where they called me and told me it was dead for like a week and a half now, maybe 2 weeks. Like it's been there for a while, and I have slowly like gone there actually like twice now, just slowly kind of move stuff out of it. And like I can't really bring myself to like call the scrap guy and like pile,
Yeah.
sell it to him for scrap. And I like
Well,
I'm
for
so
the sake
hard-
of the story, how long have you had this car for?
14 years.
14 years.
That's
And-
longer than some people have had children.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's like that car has been on some wild adventures and like seen some crazy stuff. Like it's kind of like really well known in like our friend circle because it's this old beater that I've had forever that just wouldn't die. And it just woke up one morning and it was dead, like the engine just gave up.
Passed away
man.
in her sleep.
Yeah, she passed away in her sleep. I was always kind of bummed though, dude.
Peacefully.
I wanted to drive it back to Alberta where it was from, like a noble elephant to die in her homeland, but like unfortunately she died in Ontario. I don't think it could have made it though. It's like a 4,000 kilometer trip, right? So
Yeah.
It's like 2 or 3 day drive.
yeah,
3 if you're being responsible.
I think it's like 3,800 or 4,000 kilometers if you go through the States side.
Oh, yeah.
Because I did it before. It's like a long drive, yeah. So I'm not entirely convinced like the car would have made it. I almost too like called another mechanic and was like, "Can I get a second opinion on this?" But I mean, obviously, like, yeah. So I gotta go take the license plate. But really, like, what I've been kind of waiting on is I'm looking in to see what pieces of metal I can salvage from it. And then Ryan and I were because of that video I posted. Ryan and I were gonna turn it into a giant hammer, like something like a hammer from the Green Dragon, like forge it into something so that its like spirit can live on.
gotta keep
Take
an
it to a
axle.
blacksmith and
Yeah, that's exactly what we were gonna do. Yeah, dude. He said Ryan was like, "I'll pitch towards that to make it happen."
Get a breastplate made out of like the roof.
Oh yeah. Even when it died, I like messaged people back like all over the place. I was like, "I regret to inform you, like, the car finally passed away," and people were just like, "My God, like I can't believe I saw the day. Like I thought that thing would outlive us all." That car owed me nothing. Like I never put it just like it was so good to So anyway, Alex had to drive me to go pick up my visa so I could go to China. My car is dead. But so I'm going to do some esports stuff. So I won't be on the podcast next week, but you guys
it's exciting stuff.
You guys can get a replacement, I'm sure, right?
We'll figure something out.
Yeah, we can't just miss 2 weeks because we missed, the week you were in El Salvador.
Yeah.
Because Adam and I are like incompetent at sound design.
Yeah, exactly. Like we had to skip it because producer Stelly wasn't here to guide us through the production process. But you guys maybe you can get Peter or Ron or something on.
We'll
here.
figure something out. Yeah.
Maybe we can actually get like I don't know, like a kind of like known pro around here to do something, we can probably get somebody that's
Known
like,
pro in Ottawa? What?
yeah, Montreal or something that's coming through or something. Who knows? Might be able to set up an interview or something, even over Skype, if we could figure that out. Who knows? We'll figure it out. It doesn't matter, even if it's the two of you. But so I won't be here next week.
All right. So let's talk about the MOCS a little bit. It was modern. Usually, isn't the MOCS usually a variety of formats?
Yeah, so it's limited and modern.
Yeah, but I thought usually there was legacy, standard, modern. Did they change it?
I can't remember. I feel like it's always just been limited in something. I think it's been limited in standard or limited in modern.
It was definitely legacy within the past couple of years.
Yeah, maybe. It might have been all three. You might be right. I can't remember.
Yeah.
There's so many tournaments. It's hard to keep track of, what's what.
Yeah,
But
we saw 24 players. 7 of those players brought Jund. And the rest were just kind of one-ofs and two-ofs of other decks. But we saw really just a variety of modern decks. There was Boggles. There was Black-Red Hollow one. We saw a couple control decks.
Lars Dam did well with the Grixis control list, right?
Yeah, he top forward.
Yeah.
And then he got destroyed by Boggles.
Oh, yeah, that matchup.
Oh, man. It
You
was
playing
not,
Grixis colors, you're
yeah.
not having a good time versus Boggles.
Or Ale line.
How you gonna beat this Carnet?
The games were over so quickly. It was insane.
Well, they even had that clip, right, that Rally Knight posted in the finals where he was playing against Steve Rubin, where he killed him, and Steve Rubin just conceded on turn 2, basically.
Yeah.
Boggles will do that to you.
Yeah.
It's like when I told Curtis to kill himself.
But yeah, Boggles obviously a good choice for the weekend.
Yeah, a bunch of people playing John. If you have Leyline,
yeah,
and their hand is Thoughtseize Lily, post board, that it's over.
Yeah, and Leyline main deck is not a new not a new thing. It's been a thing for a while.
Yeah, it works pretty well with Ethereal Armor.
Yeah. Yeah. Counts.
Yeah, it counts. Count it.
But yeah, and so we saw there weren't that many Jaces in this event.
Yeah, there was 10?
I think 10 copies of Jace amongst all 24 decks.
Yeah, I saw the dumb tweet from old Hoogles where he's like, oh, there's more Bloodbraid Elves than Jaces. Jace is fine. And well, did Jund really do that well, or is it really that great? Is Bloodbraid really
I think Jund had a decent tournament. It put 2 copies into top 4, but it's
also the most played deck
format.
Most played deck too by miles. And a lot of the Jund records that were in the top 4 were 5 and 3, right? And then undefeated or X1 limited performances. So it's hard to say. So I didn't think Bloodbraid Elf would dominate the format at all, nor do I think it will.
Well, we don't really have anything to work off of. This is a 24-person split format tournament. You can't really take what we see.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That tweet from
Hoogland,
right? See, Jace is fine. People were whatever is I'm so smart. I know the entire modern metagame from a 24-person tournament.
Yeah. Well, this is one thing you wanted to bring up that we were talking about before the show, saying we're not going to really know the true effect of these cards in the format
for a while. For a long time.
We're going to have to see multiple major events to really figure out what's going on and are these cards actually a detriment,
or are they fine, or what's going to happen, or where does the modern metagame go? If you were kind of aware of the history of these cards, well, Jace non-modern, but Bloodbraid Elf and modern. Bloodbraid was being cut before it was banned as a 4-of. It was never fully cut, obviously, but it was people were playing 2 and 3 copies. Due to the shape of the metagame of modern at the time, people needed to play the full 4 Inquisition and Thoughtseizes.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't safely, I guess, quote unquote, play the full 4 Bloodbraid. Plus, Deathrite Shaman was, not banned yet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of...
Did they get banned together?
No, after, actually.
Oh, okay.
Bloodbraid took the hit for Deathrite, basically, first, which is what should have been banned all along. And then shortly after they banned... Because that was when a Jundi came out, because people just started playing 4-color John because of Deathrite Shaman with a Johnny Vengeance and Lingering Souls as the splash to replace the Bloodbraid Elf that was banned as the 4-drop spot for a Johnny, because they wanted 2 Planeswalkers, I guess. It was pretty good.
But yeah, Jund was never it wasn't it was the boogeyman of the format. It was just it was the best deck, and a lot of players just gravitated towards it because, you play a big modern event. You just want to play something that's solid against everything.
Well, it was one of the best decks. Pod was one of the best decks.
Yeah.
Pod, could easily win a tournament the same day John did.
Mhm. Yeah,
Twin.
I think it was generally just always a huge part of the metagame,
Yeah, of course.
which is what they wanted to get away from.
Yeah, they didn't want it taking up such a lion's share of the meta, but I don't think that Bloodbraid is a problem, nor do I think that John will. I think, like, okay, so this is kind of one of the things that I think is interesting about the Bloodbraid banning is, or unbanning, is that we've talked about this on the podcast like numerous times, right? Like, what are the best cards in Modern?
Yeah.
Like the discard spells, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, Collective Brutality are by numbers the best cards in Modern, and we see those being shaved in lists that are playing Bloodbraid Elf.
Yeah.
So while Bloodbraid is powerful, in some ways it sort of balances out the power of the overall deck by like having them play less of the best cards in Modern for this other, like, I guess, best card and one of the best cards in Modern. So, you know, like they have to strike this balance. So it makes, I think it keeps the deck fair.
Yeah.
So Bloodbraid won't be too oppressive or anything.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think the lack of Collective Brutalities is insanity, as Cam also pointed out that.
Yeah, so like, because you guys were talking about the John/Rock matchup versus Burn.
Because like Ari Locke said, like it's a hard matchup for John Burn. Like,
Oh yeah, his comment in an article he wrote recently was just the top contenders for battling Jund, Hexproof, Tron, and Burn.
right.
And you said you countered that with you said you don't think Burn is very good against Jund.
I think it's actually awful. It's just depending on card choices.
But yeah, if you look at like John's sideboard from this event, they have one Collective Brutality maybe and none main. But I was thinking, like, why not play some main? Like, it's a good cascade target. It can always at least do something, which is the problem with other discard spells. It acts as a discard spell, which, as we were just saying, is powerful. And which creatures in Modern doesn't it kill? Like, it doesn't kill Goyfs usually, Bedlam Reveler, maybe a Nakatl or a Mantis Rider. But, like, otherwise it could pick off anything. And even if it can't, like, it at least does something.
It picks off opposing Bloodbraid Elves.
Yeah, like, that it picks off Bloodbraid Elf is big. It picks off Pyromancers, Snapcasters, like,
Meddling Mages, like,
yeah.
whatever. There's like a host of.
You can escalate when you...
Dark Confidants.
it picks off Dark Confidants is big. You can escalate when you cascade into it. Like, it's just...
Right, and get rid of the Inquisition in your hand that isn't good anymore. Like,
or whatever, yeah.
who knows? Like, right? Like, it's so good. Like, I don't understand people not playing it at this event, especially if people think Burn is a hard matchup.
Yeah, so like a couple of those main, I think, is maybe what we'll start seeing.
Yeah, I think so. I think people are just gonna have to play with the numbers. I think it's gonna take a long time. I think the same is like for the Jace decks.
Mm-hmm.
But the Jace decks, the problem with like the control decks in Modern isn't that the win condition. They didn't need a win condition to win. That's a mistake a lot of people make about control decks and assessing them. Like, oh, if only they had a good way to close the game out. Like, oh, they didn't need that. They had colonnades and stuff. Like, they had a way to close the game. The problem is Path to XL sucks and Mana Leak sucks. And the two of them together is just such a non-bow, and it's so painful, and it just hurts me to even think about playing them in the same deck. Like, the deck's just not good. Like, the control deck's, I think the Grixis control deck that Lars Dan played is sweet.
Yeah.
That deck's way better.
Let me pull that up for a moment.
Like, even Cory Burkhart played Grixis control. So people, I think, still think that, like, those are the better options. You get to play Liliana and Jace together, which I'm already on board with.
I like Direfleet Daredevils. That's cool.
He's playing 4 Snapcaster and 2 Direfleet.
Yeah. That's definitely neat.
Most of the games I saw him win, he was just attacking with 2/1s.
2/1 first strike and a 2/1 without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this deck is pretty solid, I'd say. I like that they're playing like minimal Serum Visions.
Yeah, that card's bad.
Oh, it's definitely bad. It's probably like...
Do you need it when you have Brainstorm?
Yeah, Cory Burkhart isn't even playing any.
Right, like,
yeah.
Thought Scour is just way better.
Yeah.
In his version and most versions. P was trying to tell me, like, he thinks that Thought Scour sucks.
I mean, if you're not playing Delve creatures, maybe.
Even if you are, it's still good. He was like, no, the card sucks. I was like, I mean, it even saw playing standard with nothing.
If you're like a Snapcaster deck too, like,
right,
sure,
like,
it kind of draws cards, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, like, also, it's like the looting thing. It's just...
He's playing Search for his Kanta, so it just flips that. So now you're ramping as well, like...
Yeah. Like, Thought Scour is incredible. It's like... One of the whole reasons to play Grixis is playing 4 Thought Scour, in my opinion. Card's very, very good.
I know. I think the deck's really solid.
One of P and Kiernalar.
What do you think?
So
of the
that
fact
card is actually seen play here and there in Grixis decks, like on and off. So I actually think his is there actually for probably. Usually it used to be there for Affinity, right? That card's a beating against Affinity. But I think it's probably there now because it kills Jace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, but
like the Thopter can hit it, and then you can sack one Thopter to kill Jace, and they can't bounce it.
You can bounce it with your own Jace. Look at all these Thopters I have.
No, like it's
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's not great, but like that card, it always seems so junky and bad until you play with it, and you're like, wow, this thing does a lot. Like it just answers a lot of problems. Like one Thopter also picks off a Bloodbraid Elf. Like it can chump a Goyf and then sack the Thopter to kill a Bloodbraid Elf. Like that's nuts.
Yeah.
Like it just lines up because everything's so low toughness in Modern, right? It's like Cam was saying, that's why Collective Brutality is so good. It's like everything's garbage.
Everything's just like some small creature that has like a ridiculous text box.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, all the bodies are terrible, but like their brains are big. Soft bodies. Big brains. Oh, look at the big brain on Snapcaster page.
Thinking man's format.
Yeah.
Give me some limited.
A lot of dread boards though. Hey,
trample.
do you notice this?
That's for 6/6.
Like so many dread boards like scattered. Not like high copies in a single
it's
list.
usually like,
but
one or two.
Everyone's like, I guess we got to play a dread board. Like
Did people used to play as many creeping tar pits in Grixis? I mean, it was Grixis Death Shadow for a while and they didn't. But did the control lists always play this many?
I think Cory Burkhart did. I think maybe he only played 2 actually, but I think now people again are playing it because of Jace.
Yeah.
This is again one of those things too that's funny to me about like the Jeff Hoogland tweet, right? Where he's like, see, like only 10 Jaces. Like I was right. It's like, yeah, but everyone also had to warp their deck completely around the existence of Jace. And maybe that made people not play as many copies or elect not to play it. Like it's so incredibly myopic and ridiculous to say like, see, like this card didn't show up, so it doesn't have an impact on the metagame. Like, look at Standard with Alex's favorite card, Chupacabra.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like eating cattle. Like, yeah, you don't see it in every single list, but there's
because every list built itself to defend against it.
Exactly. There's a reason you don't see Chupacabra in every list because it haunts the format. It doesn't see it. It's like a incorporeal menace. You know, like it never has to manifest because it's always like the fear of it has kept everyone in check. And the exact same thing is happening with Jace, where like, yeah, you know, we only see like 10 copies, but the fear of it is making everybody play a bunch of creeping tar pits, a bunch of dread boards, like lurking through a list. Like people are like have to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like so silly to me to say like, see, there's only 10 copies. So yeah, well, like you never see Chupacabra in Standard, so the card sucks, right? Card's terrible. It doesn't do anything. It has no impact on Standard, and it doesn't matter. No one plays it.
Yep.
Like that's how I'm just getting myself worked up here. I'm just getting rattled, dude. I'm rankled. I just like hate that logic. So like this is actually a good lesson though for like people listening at Magic to never think like of, you know, oh, like that card doesn't see play, so it's not good. It's like actually the card is completely warps the format. It just doesn't see play because it has no shape in the meta because it warped the meta around it so badly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, man.
It's like downplaying the lethality of infectious diseases that we have vaccinations for.
No one would do that.
Well, why? Why would you?
What logical person would ever do such a thing?
Well, clearly this thing isn't that powerful because like not a lot of people are infected. So like, I don't need to get a vaccine.
You know what I'm most excited for about flying to China on Sunday night?
What?
Is testing the curvature of the airplane window.
Did I tell you guys my new favorite conspiracy theory?
Go on.
All right. So the idea that the moon landing was faked, the idea that chemtrails are poisoning the population.
Yeah.
These conspiracy theories were faked by the government and NASA to make the people who were onto real conspiracies seem crazy by association to hide the actual secrets.
They're like false flagging their own brains. That's a 200 IQ government play right there. You can't beat that one.
That's the real cover up.
The cover up of
Just
the cover
letting
up.
people know. If this podcast doesn't air next week, it's because they got me.
It's because we're dead. Yeah, that's the real reason I'm like locked up in a gulag in China.
Oh, man.
So this is the conspiracy that why Chupacabra doesn't see play in standard and why Jace isn't quote unquote dominating the metagame and why he doesn't matter and is quote unquote fine. They all just wanted to trick you into.
Yeah. It's a 2-layer cover up.
It has layers. high LPM cover up. The layers per minute are strong. I forgot about LPM.
It's been a while since we referenced that.
Chupacabra has a lot of LPM.
Yeah.
That's a good card. High layers.
Yeah. But yeah, really, we're only seeing it as like a one of in a lot of decks now.
Chupacabra never sees play. It doesn't have to though. Again, it's just a looming threat. It's like kind of funny, there's something like literary about like that it's a Chupacabra, this mythical beast that haunts and it's a ghost story you tell people to scare them, right? That's kind of how the card ended up actually affecting the metagame as well, right? It was like this card that didn't actually ever really show up, but haunted the metagame.
Rumor has it that if you go play Magic on a dark and stormy night and you're really quiet and are just playing a fair creature deck, the Chupacabras will show up and get you.
Come eat you. Are you trying to play your 4/4 or like your 5 mana or like your 4 mana 5/5s? Eaten.
Yeah.
Get eaten.
Man. All right, so let's briefly talk about Legacy since there was a SCG Legacy event this weekend, won by Grixis Delver. You were saying everyone's kind of figuring out now that Grixis Delver is just the best deck in the format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was 11.
Expand on that a little bit.
A third, just over a third of the top 32 were Grixis Delver lists. Half the top 8. Like that's the kind of dominant numbers we never see in Legacy.
So why is this happening now?
I think people just slowly figure it out. Legacy's so slow moving. There's no Grand Prix. There's no major tournaments. There's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not a ton of paper tournaments. Like also like a lot of the Legacy events for Star City Games, one of the biggest data points, hasn't given us any data because they've been team events when there's been Legacy. But I think for a while, I thought like maybe Czech Pie, and I said this on the podcast that I would have played Czech Pile, the 4-color control list. And I think if you were in Europe, you would have saw a lot more of it. They like that deck more over there. And I think that deck has an okay Grixis Delver matchup. But I think that Grixis Delver is probably just the better deck. It's just a safe choice. It's good against.
What's it not good against? Let's
Right.
start with that.
Like nothing. Like it's just a deck that can pivot so well, right? It has so many options. Its sideboard's gotten better in the last couple sets. Cards like a Braid, I realize it's a one-of, but it's Legacy. It's very easy to find one-ofs.
Yeah.
Cards like a Braid help the deck a lot. They're good in tons of matchups. You can bring them in, like Death and Tech, Creature Mirror, whatever. But also, really, it's there for Chalice of the Void, right? These like super problematic cards because your deck is all 1-cost spells.
Is having a deck like this be very dominant? Like, is that even bad for the format? Like, it's fine,
I
right?
think it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not really like. I think the kind of one annoying thing with Grixis Delver is that like it can play the very traditional Delver strategy of, stick a Delver, protect it, wasteland you, and tempo you out.
Yeah.
But this deck, also has young Pyromancer, occasionally, depending like true names, usually true names now, right? Gurmag Anglers, like they have ways to go over the top.
Yeah.
So they have these like really annoying, like it's basically become the mid-range deck of the format, which is funny because everything costs 1.
Yeah.
But it's Legacy, so it's just the casting cost is just incredibly low because that's how Legacy is. Like, that like this 3-drop is just an unkillable 3/1 that can do whatever it wants, right? Like, you're playing 1 mana 5/5s. So it's just the best mid-range deck that can pivot and do everything, right? Like, look at its list, like it's playing Spell Pierce. So it has a good combo. It has Daze, Spell Pierce, Force of Will. Like, it's good against combo. Has Wasteland. It can disrupt people. Has good creatures. Like, it can come up the board. Like, it just has everything. Get Probe. It knows what's going on. Like, it always finds the pieces it needs. It's like...
Yeah, it seems fine.
Yeah, like it's just a solid mid-range deck, but I think that the deck's fine. Like, I think it's okay to have a best deck. This is like probably also an overrepresented like tournament for it. I think that normally you wouldn't see this level of Grixis Delver. Before I would be concerned about the state of the metagame, I would have to see like 2 other tournaments that were just like only Grixis Delver basically, and then I'd be a little concerned. But that like Jim Davis top forward with a Miracles, you know, playing Predict and
Portent.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, but he had back to basics in his list, which are I think important actually, because Grixis Delver plays no basic lands, like, you know, to lock them out.
Yeah, like we're not saying this deck is just the end all be all. It is beatable. Like you can.
Yeah, for sure.
There's
like,
tons of ways to beat
there's
it.
tons
It's
of hate
legacy,
cards. The only
like,
the only thing is like the metagame would have to be a third Grixis Delver for you to do it, to show up with a metagame deck that's like basically only good against Grixis Delver and maybe one other archtype and smash them, but you can't beat anything else because that's how Legacy
You don't have to warp your entire deck to have game against this kind of deck.
No, God no. Like
No,
if
you just play some sideboard cards, maybe a couple choices. Like you're
the
fine.
problem is that like the best deck against it might be itself. Like the best one of the decks that's best equipped to fight it is itself. Like it has Forked Bolt.
Yeah.
You know, like what's the best answer to Death Right? Like, well, like Bolt and Death Right. Right. So like it has like 4 lightning bolts. Like it's sort of, that is the kind of concern I have, that like it's best at playing against itself almost.
Yeah, but you know, in the long run, it's Legacy. No one plays that format, so we can move on.
Formats that, well, what else? Like it was like Miracles,
Elves, lands, Eldrazi.
Yeah. I can't, I'm surprised colorless Eldrazi, man. What a weird deck for Legacy. It just like came and went. You know, do you remember when it came kind of like onto the Legacy scene? It was like the people thought it was going to take over because the mana was just so busted, you know? Like it was playing like Eldrazi Temple.
Everyone just kind of realized that the whole format is just like that. So
it was
didn't
like,
matter.
Man, I can play this like 5/5 on turn 2. And it's like, well, yeah, like you can do that in Modern. Like you can play Gurmag Angler on turn 2. Like playing a 5/5 on turn 2 is like it's not that crazy. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's nothing to write home about. Like they can cast their Gurmag Angler and like on like, you know, I guess in Legacy not really, because like they don't play Thought Scour, but you know, in Modern, no problem. Chalice of the Void is like guaranteed the reason this guy wins it all. Endless One though, the card's good. I don't know, the deck's fine. The Simian Spirit Guide I like I think that like if you're playing colorless Eldrazi, you have to try and Chalice of the Void people on turn 1. Like that's
I agree.
the only way you can win.
Yeah.
Like against the Delver decks.
That's how you steal like infinity amount of games.
Yeah,
right?
you just win free, many free matches because you're just like, okay, you can't play 90% of the spells in your deck. Go. Right? Like,
yeah.
Like if you're, so for like people who don't, it's hard to find Legacy terms, but if you do and you're new to playing Legacy, like, and you're playing against like a colorless Eldrazi or a Chalice of the Void deck, like a mud deck, you have to Force of Will almost. If they snap keep their hand, you have to Force of Will. If you don't have Force of Will, you're getting turn 1 Chaliced off an Ancient Tomb, a City of Traders. Like they have a million ways to do it, and they will Chalice you,
and they will most definitely do it.
And you're stone dead. You might think you're not. Like, well, I can draw something. You know, no, you can't.
You can draw your Young Pyromancer, and then cast your spells to make tokens.
Yeah, that's about it. I have seen games won.
Hope that's good enough to not get smashed in the meantime.
Yeah, maybe they kept a bad hand that was like 6 lands Chalice.
Yeah. I mean, I would, if I were on the play and I knew I was playing against Delver, I might keep that.
Right, so.
And just hope they were like, if I was on the play, I hope draw no, because you get dazed. You just get dazed and just lose on the spot. But unless you got the Simian Spirit Guide, you got the Ancient Tomb Simian Spirit Guide on the
5
draw.
lands.
Like, it doesn't matter, but you just like Ancient Tomb, you know, Chalice on 1, and then they try and daze it, and they picked up their land. Ooh. And then you like Simian Spirit Guide to pay for it. Then you get them. That's sweet.
That's how you do it.
That's like a 2-level conspiracy theory type play.
Oh, yeah. 200 IQ irrelevant.
You think I'm tapped out?
That's a 2 conspiracy level play. Yeah. So, I don't know. Legacy's whatever. That is, though, quite concerning, in my opinion, to have that kind of a share of the metagame, though, right? Like 30% in Legacy, man. That's a lot. But, like, how many decks played? Hold on, can you open the top 32 again? How many played Brainstorm? Like 4 Brainstorm? Like, I don't know why we care. Like, it's like such a joke. We're just looking at like a format dominated by one single card. I guess like Elves and Lands didn't play it. Colorless Eldrazi didn't. Turbo Deaths didn't. There's another Elves. So far, like, that's a Burnwood 6. So out of the top 32, there's going to be like, I'm going to guess 6. Okay, yeah. Punishing Abzan won't. So there's 7 decks out of 32. 8 decks Abzan Maverick won't play it. So yeah, 8 decks out of 32 that weren't playing for Brainstorm. That's kind of rough. Like that's
Brainstorm format.
Well, yeah. You're a sucker if you don't play Brainstorm.
Yeah.
And all those other decks, by the way, either play Chalice, because like the Maverick deck for sure can board into it, or like has ways to answer it, or hate for Brainstorm decks, right? Or is like Elves, which is just like a deck that doesn't, it plays, what's it called? The stupid draw card every time you, what's it
Glimpse?
called again? Yeah, Glimpse.
Yeah.
Plays Glimpse. Like, you know, and plays some busted draw card, you know,
Yeah.
it combos off. So
Yeah.
format's dumb. I love it, but it's like, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about our topic today a little bit. Cam, you want to take this one?
Why do I always have to do it?
I don't know. You
Is
came
it because
up
I'm
with
the
it.
one that always comes up with these
Because
ideas?
you have a 2-level brain.
Yeah. I mean, I got a 3-level brain. I just don't show you so you don't get intimidated.
Oh.
On good days, it's 4. Yeah, so our topic, as I just did, is a kind of about self-reflection and how to accurately analyze your place in a game. Because, like, so in past topics, we've discussed, like, if you are behind, here's how you should play. Like, if you are ahead, you should play patient. If you are the aggressor, if you're aggro deck, you should do this. But we haven't actually ever talked about, I find myself in the middle of a game. Vaguely, we're in
Just woke up here from a fugue state.
Woke up here from my nightmare about chupacabras. And how do I tell which one of those positions I'm in? How do I assess what role I should be, like what of our previous episodes I should be employing?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like, am I beat down? Am I whatever?
Right.
Like, where am I?
Because this kind of, I mean, there's sort of a joke character that we talk about sometimes, which is the terrified victor, who is...
This is a figure on the bingo card, by the way.
Yeah. Which is this person who you play against and you get absolutely stomped. Like, you have no chance. They just run you over. And then afterwards, they're like wiping their brow. They're sweating. They're like, oh, that was close. Like, I thought you might get me there. Like, they just are unaware of how far ahead they were.
And that you just like had actual 1 in 1,000 chance to win. You
Right.
know, and they're just kicking you about.
And they're just so terrified. And on the other side, there's people who stay in games far too long. It's like, no, I got a chance. Like, this isn't so bad. Like, I can draw whatever and get out of it. And they like don't realize they're locked. Like, these are the people who don't like playing against Lantern Control because they don't know when to concede. Yeah. And so, you know, it's really important to be able to accurately analyze how, like, your position in a game. And so there were some examples of this, of notably, because we can't hear the players, but when I was watching the MOCS, sometimes the commentators did not accurately analyze the position of the players in the game.
Shocking.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you can't.
The
you know,
commentators at a Magic
it's
tournament
funny, actually,
not
like-
properly analyzing the game state.
like
Whoa. I'm blown away.
like a dozen.
Has that ever happened before?
I only once. Like a dozen episodes ago, we had a whole thing about watching coverage to get better, and like we did specifically have an addendum that said, you know, except don't listen to the.
Yeah, you should mute coverage.
You should mute coverage because they're very misleading in their understanding of what's happening. They even did the thing we did from last week where he was like, "Oh, if you can't, you know, if he casts Serum Visions here and draws a creature, he can play it and blocks." Like, no, he should just because he has to pay a shock land and lose 2 life, and he's just
Yeah.
going to block 2 damage. He can just play the land, tap, and then Damnation next turn. And
Yeah.
coverage was like, "Oh, he's just going to do that instead." It's like, yeah, but we talked about this last week. Like, why would you play a creature you're going to Damnation anyway? Just save your creature for the follow up.
Yeah, exactly.
But like coverage just had no idea about like where he was in the game and what his game plan was.
And like the example I was thinking of is it was Larsdam versus someone playing Jund. I can't remember his name, but it was a Bloodbraid Jund versus Grixis Control. And the Grixis Control player had already resolved one Ancestral Vision and was about to resolve another. And then he did, and he drew 4 cards, and coverage was like, well, he's drawn so many cards this game. Like, the Jund player's empty-handed. Like, he's just so far ahead. Like, I don't know, if I was the Jund player, I'd be picking up my cards. But you look at it, and like, what did he draw? He drew 2 lands, 2 spot removal spells, and the Jund player has a Liliana in play that like can't be answered, Liliana of the Veil, which is going to negate that card advantage, and has 4 lands. Like, they're live to cast anything they draw. Like, Bloodbraid's going to be nuts. Like, so are you actually that far ahead? Like, yeah, you have a lot of cards, but like, what cards are they? And if you're the Jund player, you should be aware that that's an option. Like, they drew 4 cards, but like maybe 2 of them only do anything. You get to take 1, and if you draw Bloodbraid, now you're equal. Like,
Right. How do I best leverage this Liliana now? Because, there's going to be a Dreadbore in his list, maybe. How do I best leverage this Liliana and position myself that it can win, right?
Yeah. And so you need to be able to like assess where you are. And I guess a sign that very good players do this is they'll stay in games and you'll see them like continue to play. And then their opponent will flash them a card or like something will happen and they'll immediately concede because they are very accurately aware of like, my only out in this game is to ride this Liliana to victory. Oh, you have Dreadbore? Okay, I'm out. Like,
right, like I can't win.
I know exactly where I'm at. I'm using this Liliana. If it's not answered, I'll stay in the game. If it is, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that then?
Well, I don't know. This is
Never
usually
crafted a game.
This is usually where I turn it over to you two.
Okay, well, I was just asking to give you a shot.
Yeah.
He just wanted to give you a chance to use your 3-level brain.
Yeah,
again, and like Alex and I actually have talked about this all the way back from the very first couple podcasts we ever did, like way back, early 5 episodes, which was the kind of benefit you derive from knowing your opponent's deck and knowing the metagame and what's going on. This is like a whole topic we did like maybe in the episode in the 20s sometime actually on tournament prep.
We've definitely talked about this before.
On tournament prep, right? Of knowing, okay, like this is the state I'm in because I know what they're doing. Like I don't have to have played my opponent's deck, and I've talked about this before as well. Like I don't have to have played my opponent's deck. I know what their game plan is. Like I know what they're trying to do. And so if I can fade that for now, like I can stay in this game. And like I'm in this position because they haven't, I don't know, like I'm playing Boggles against Tron, right? And I'm in this game because he hasn't drawn Ugin. And like, if he plays Ugin, I lose. It doesn't matter. Anything else that happens, I can kind of like slog through. But the minute he plays Ugin, I'm picking up my cards, right? So like, that's a really like blatant and stupid example, but it's sort of like, I know what's happening and I know what, like I can't play around that. And there's nothing I can do to beat that. But I can play around everything else, right? It's like knowing what I'm doing and like my position, right? I can slog through whatever. It's like,
yeah, you like in the position you're at, you have to realize, what role am I taking? What cards actually matter at this point? Do I have to defend my cards on board? Do the cards in my hand matter more? Where is this game going? What can't I beat? What can I beat?
Right. Yeah, it's like in standard, I played like a bit of that like Grixis Thopter's list, right? Like I had some listeners message me for the list. I think I forgot, by the way, I just realized to send to one person, but like 10 people messaged me for the list. I had to keep sending it out. And one of the changes, I think I messaged a few people who had asked later, I said, I added some more answers for Scarab God because there were games where I was like, yeah, I don't care about that card. And actually I didn't care about most cards in most matchups because I just made a million Thopters. Even Rekindling Phoenix or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, I just don't care. I just jump with Thopter and deal with it later. But it turns out, like, if they kill my Whirler Virtuoso with Scarab Gods and start taking them, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I just needed more answers to Scarab God. But it's like, when I play that deck, it just depends. Like I would have to know what's going on like the board and make a decision of like, can I like use this Vraska's Contempt now on, I don't know, something dumb? Or like, will I lose on the spot if they play Scarab God? Like, does my deck care? Will it care in the next 2 turns? Like, depending on what they play. Like, this is just knowing like what your deck is capable of. And that's sort of like how you have to maneuver in those positions. Like, which is the same thing with the Liliana for the Jund player. It's like, well, his deck doesn't have Dreadbores. Really, like he's not packing a bunch of them. It's like 1 at most. So do I really care that he has a bunch of card advantage? Like, do I carry Resolved Ancestral Visions if my plan is to like make him sack like most of his lands and most of his relevant permanents if I need to? Problem is like, I don't know that Liliana the Veil ultimate really matters in that matchup. But like, it's like, I'm just saying, yeah, it's going to negate that card advantage. So like, you have to understand like what the matchup looks like. And like, sometimes card advantage doesn't matter. I know that sounds...
No,
like, I never thought I would say that, but
there's tons of scenarios you can craft where it doesn't. And so like one of the bullet points here under this topic is when you're trying to figure out where you are in a game, it's how to weigh your advantages. And so like I've kind of came up with an answer here to your question after a while, but you can imagine like your position in the game versus your opponents as like a scale, like a balance. Where, like single hard to answer or very impactful cards are heavier than others. So like that Liliana in this scenario is like, it tips the scale in your favor. But they like answers to those cards are equally heavy for your opponent. So if they can answer your like impactful card, then like they're going to be an advantage.
Right. Yeah.
But if you have a diversity of medium yet relevant threats. Like say you're playing a limited game and you have a good start, you're playing an aggressive deck and your opponent's now at 6 and they have a massive flyer. That it's a large threat, like it tips the scale in their favor, but you might also have enough relevant threats because if they're at 6 and you have 4 2/2s and you're drawing cards, like you're actually not in that bad of a scenario. And that's the type of people, like you'll see people be ahead like that and their opponent will resolve a big flyer and they'll start panicking. They'll be like, oh, I don't know how to deal with that. I don't really have any answers. Like, what am I going to do? Well, just attack your opponent. Like, you need to be able to weigh your resources versus theirs based on context, based on whatever.
Right. This is like the classic sign of, like good mono red players are just going to like suicide in. Right. Like they're just going to send in guys going like, well, I'll draw lightning strike.
And
otherwise I can't win.
Because it's important to know that like, there's like this theoretical weight to the resources I have, but if I don't realize that and don't attack with my creatures, I'm giving that all up.
Right.
So like, this is why like that's what these players have in mind. If they're like, okay, I have this like one very heavy thing. Like say you back when Esper Dragons was a popular deck in Standard, like you resolve an Ojutai, you are very favored.
Oh yeah, that card was obnoxious.
You were very favored, right? You can like imagine the scale is very tipped in your favor, and the only thing that's going to spring it back is a Crackling Doom.
Yeah.
So like, you're aware that any other card your opponent plays like isn't a big deal. You don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you just need to weigh the risk of like, okay, do I play this here versus that? Because like they can resolve something on the ground or anything else. It just doesn't matter because I have this Ojutai.
So like that would be my main piece of advice is if your opponent does something and you start to panic and like you're very worried about that thing, like how am I going to answer that? What am I going to do? Like maybe they played a Scarab God. Just take a step back and be like, all right, like how heavy is that Scarab God actually in this game scenario compared to like what I have?
Right. Like, will it actually just kill me? Like, what resource do I have to leverage here? Like, and a lot of times Scarab God, like that's kind of a tough example because it will just kill you. But
right. But like there's scenarios where,
kill you.
Like if you're playing red, there are scenarios where a Scarab God on 5, like is going to be too slow.
Oh yeah. Of course. Or like you just have a board state where them investing the 4 mana is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like them getting a creature per turn, let's say, is just not enough. Like you have too much that they're going to have to chomp. So yeah, that comes up too. So, and you need to kind of recognize like, oh my God, that card's good, right? It's the same thing with the like, see, Jace never showed up, so it's not even good. It's just fine in Modern, right? It's the same thing of like, oh God, that's a good card. They played a good card. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, you have a rare in your draft. Like that's the kind of like.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just people overreacting because they're not.
It's a failure to understand that all cards, no cards, I guess, like operate in a vacuum in a game, right? Like the game itself is never in a vacuum, right? Like the individual power level of a card, like the amount, for example, that like we played blue-red aggro during the Kaladesh Aether Revolt drafts.
About as much as possible.
As much as possible with like, how many crash throughs did we play? Like, every draft. You would
as
have
many
at least,
as I could.
Right. You would have like at least 1 or 2 in your deck every time and be thrilled.
Yep.
And no other, like in a vacuum, that card's so bad. Like it's so incredibly bad.
But when it deals 2 to your opponent
and draws you a card,
it's
It's shock draw a card? Nuts. Like
it deals 2 to your opponent, makes 2 of my creatures bigger, and draws me a card. Sign me up.
Yeah, busted. So like, I'm just saying, like all cards are contextual and their use is contextual, and just as in the same way, all game states are contextual, and all cards within those game states have a contextual relationship to one another. So it's like so ridiculous when you hear like people complain in limited, like, oh my God, you have Tetzmox. It's like, yeah, it doesn't do anything. I'm dead here. Like I don't have enough black mana. Like whatever. Like there's so many like. The rares don't matter in the sense of like the context of the game. Sure, there are times where like you just get overpowered due to card quality, but that's because they had multiple high quality cards.
But it's not every time you draw a rare that it's going to be enough to win you the game.
Like, or whatever. So like all context matters, which is I guess kind of the way you need to start thinking about the game to get out of the terrified victor mentality, right? Of like, oh my God, not realizing you're ahead, because like you have to realize the context of the game and what's been happening and the relationship to the cards they have, because like the Ojutai example, like the Liliana example is, oh, well, they don't, like in the context of this game, they don't have clean answers. Like they don't have ways to deal with this. This is, and to even stretch this back to like a broader metagame structure, this is why Boggles like won this tournament for the MOCS. It basically won like a Pro Tour, like 40 grand in platinum, like is because in the context of the metagame and the MOCS, people couldn't interact. People couldn't do anything. Like people just couldn't beat it because in the context of like Modern's current metagame, like that, those cards were just unbeatable. So he recognized that, right? Like he recognized like, and it's like, yeah, the joke in the interview of like, oh, I don't want to play Magic against good players. Like he's like joking, right? Like that's not what it was. It was just a sweet metagame call. Cedric Phillips got back on the Pro Tour doing this exact same thing. Do you remember? It's
a
year and a half ago.
Yeah, he played Boggles in an
online PTQ and won it because he said literally he's played against Jun 9 rounds in a row.
Yeah.
And just went undefeated. Just smashed it. He's like never close, never even a little bit close. So, and it's sort of understanding. So that's like weighing your advantage in a broader metagame, right? Like,
like what deck
this
you
is
bring
a
and
sweet
stuff.
deck choice because it's like I'm realizing where the metagame is and trying to like leverage an advantage in that.
But it's also important that like,
but you have to do it in the turn by turn in a game as well.
Yeah, I mean Boggles, there's less decisions in Boggles. But even if you bring a deck that's like a good metagame choice, you need to understand like why it's weighted that way. Like why is it a good metagame choice?
Turn by turn, what you're doing to make it so it's good.
Right, because if you have like the card that if you have the card that's good against them, like this is the reason this matchup's good, and you don't realize that that's the card it is, and you trade it for something, like you're gonna squander all your resources, right? So like, this like understanding your place in the game is understanding how much each of your cards is contributing to your place in this game, and because then like this answers questions like when people tank, it's like, do I quadruple block to protect my planeswalker, or do I let them have my planeswalker? Like, what's more important here in this board state, my creatures or this powerful one card? Like,
right, yeah. And
that's a decision that I think that's a very common scenario that a lot of people mess up, overvaluing planeswalkers.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's difficult to do though in a turn by turn assessment, and I think it requires a lot of like forethought and planning and just kind of like
requires a lot of matchup experience too.
Yeah, a lot of it is matchup experience, just knowing what's happening, like knowing what the other person is capable of doing and what they're capable of playing. And it's not easy for like your casual, like I'm not like insulting casual at all, but like someone who just, I don't know, plays FNM once a week and doesn't really pay attention to the meta. It can be difficult for them to make those decisions. It's like, how do you give advice to those people? Well, in general, there are only a certain amount of cards that do X or Y or Z thing. So like,
yeah, and I said,
think about it from a broader theoretical, like in every format, it's usually only a couple cards that have this effect.
Yeah.
So I know I can, make my decisions based around that.
Yeah.
It's just like some advice for people who don't, they don't have the time or commitment to completely follow a metagame, obviously.
And a lot of times, like if you're in a scenario like this, like just make a decision. And this is advice we've given before, but like say you opt to protect your planeswalker. Ask your opponent afterwards, like, were you actually worried about this card? Like, is the effect of this planeswalker something that your deck is concerned about?
Yeah, you can always ask.
Yeah. I
mean, this doesn't mean they're going to give you a clear answer or like
they probably don't know, but
they'll probably just give you the wrong answer so they can get you later. They're like, no, I don't care, but it's actually a 2-level conspiracy so that when they play you at the next FNM, because that's how much they care about their FNM performance.
Secretly, all the advice we give on this podcast is wrong so that when we like play against our listeners.
You come to play me, I would like to make that joke, except that there's a local player who doesn't really play limited or standard, but when he shows up to the opens, he listens.
He takes our advice and crumples us.
Yeah, I hate him. Actually, no, he's a great guy. And he will he only plays Modern, and then he will qualify for the opens through playing Modern at the Tower. And then the week before, because we always sort of do like, hey, what would you play in the Open? And like, what do you think about the limited format, right? Because those are the only around the Pro Tour, we always like nail and especially limited, like we, for the past year and a half, have just been basically dead on about what the limited format looks like. And without fail, dude, like I play him in the draft portion. Like I'll dodge him in Swiss, where I probably have a way higher edge in standard. And then I'll play him in the draft and just like he'll 2-0 me easily. And he'll be like, hey, just like listen to exactly what you said on the podcast to draft. And just drafted exactly those cards. I'm like, hey, your deck's busted. Like your deck's just so good. No one else at the table took those cards. He's like, yeah, people just kept passing them to me. I'm just like, I really got to quit doing this. Like, I think he's done it to you too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it feels bad, man. Because like I'll say it on the podcast and then like go in and just like, screw it. I'm just going to make some wacky draft happen and like have some fun and then like play.
Having fun.
Well, because I just assumed everyone else like going to be bad at draft because that's usually the case. And then like I'll go 2-1 in draft every time because I have to play against him in like round 3. And I'm like, God. He just smashes me because he like actually listened. Feels bad.
All right.
Yeah, I guess as a closing note, if you want to analyze your analysis, if you like decide that some card is important in a match in a game, and then
2 layers,
and then you lose, like just reassess. Like, okay, maybe that effect wasn't as valuable as I thought it was, or maybe I should have valued something else more. Like you can always just. That's just the running theme of getting
Live
better
and
at
learn.
Magic is
Yeah.
do something and see what happens.
Yeah.
trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't do
Alright.
the same thing over and over again if it's not working. Definition of insanity. Speaking of definition of insanity, the blowout of the week, just trying to watch official Magic coverage. I literally just looked at the MOCS because I couldn't watch it.
It was bad.
Yeah, like the sizes of everything on the screen paired with like, why do we have to see the commentators and not the players who are playing?
Right, like
Why, like, but and
Al-
then
also-
why do all the commentators have terrible laptop mics?
right, and also why on the screen on the actual broadcast on Twitch was the Magic Online interface about 1/3 of the screen space.
Mhm.
The rest was just like a giant banner that was like MOCS Online and like Marshall talk, like a small picture of Marshall talking. It was like, what is all this blank space? Like, who designed this? Like,
Yeah.
Even like the
it was
Moto
just so
interface,
embarrassing to look at.
the Moto interface itself doesn't lend itself well to viewership. Like, except there was a time in a limited game, someone attacked with Italia the Primal Storm, and both commentators were just like, "What got exiled? What happened?" Like, I can't. It doesn't
Right,
show.
like,
It just pops up in like a little window that
The
you can't
they
read. 'cause it's too
could
small.
program a way to do it. Like Hearthstone clearly does it, and Hearthstone does a fine job of doing it. They could do this, but like, I mean, it's also Magic Online. It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah, but are you going to do it for the one tournament a year you have for Magic Online?
Right. And that's what's so funny. Like I've read articles from like, I think it was like Efro and Mike Sigris have both like separately like written like, I wish all tournaments were on like Magic Online. There's no judges, like blah, blah, blah. Like it's way better viewing experience. I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? It is unbearable. Like it's so bad. So the blow was just having to listen to the mic coverage. We're like a couple of like at the time of starting this podcast, like you're no longer a student. And I guess like as of a few weeks ago, neither am I, but like we're like broke students who have better audio quality than like this like multinational corporation putting on events that where they're giving out $40,000 in prize, and we have better audio quality than them for like a major event.
Yeah.
So that's the blowout. Was the audio quality. Just hire
Everything quality.
hire
production quality.
producer Stelly.
I'll do it.
Hashtag hire Stelly for
do
like
it for
Magic Online
exposure.
production. Like this is ridiculous. So we'll be sending you a foil version of Stelly of Magic Online as your prize.
All right. Thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs. Great store, great sponsor of this podcast. You can also, if you want to get in contact with us, you can find us on Facebook at the Disorganized Wizard Club Podcast. We're also on Twitter at DWC Podcast 1. Shoot us a message. We're always like to hear from people. If you have a topic idea, you want to hear about something, more explanation about something we talked about on the show, go ahead, shoot us a message. And however you listen to this podcast, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, leave us a review, rate the podcast, share it with your friends. Really, word of mouth is one of the best ways to keep this podcast growing. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Later.